Welcome to Flipping the Table. In this episode, Michael has a conversation with Carmen Snyder, Executive Director of Sonoma County Farm Trails. Founded in 1973, Sonoma County Farm Trails was the nation's first community-based nonprofit corporation to promote local farms with an annual map, advertising, and farm-focused events. Local farms are important to our future, and Carmen offers one way to keep them alive. Enjoy the show.
Family farms are under pressure across the country. Extreme weather, labor shortages, the cost of doing business, and particularly urbanization that drives up land prices are killing off our small local farms. This is a tragedy for a few reasons. Such farms add beauty and economic diversity to our communities. When well managed, they also protect our soils, our water, and species while delivering unique and valued ingredients or finished food and fiber products. They help define a region's particular culture with those products. And they provide a food shed in a time when climate change and pandemic threaten the industrial supply chains upon which we have unwisely become solely dependent. So along with many others, I believe that we need these small farms in and around our communities. But how do we keep them economically viable in a modern industrial economy? Well, I trust that my conversation today with Carmen Snyder about Sonoma County Farm Trails will offer one important answer. When living in an intentional farming community in North Carolina, Carmen fell in love with farm life and food production, especially enjoying beekeeping, food preservation and fermentation, hand milking goats and cows, and making dairy products. Over the course of her career, she has worked as a middle school English teacher, a yoga instructor, head of the kitchen for various events, and principal organizer for the Southeastern Permaculture Gathering. Since coming to Sonoma County, Carmen has become passionate about supporting local farmers and working to preserve farms forever. She oversees farm trails operations and events, from budgets to band selection, and is most interested in cultivating community, bridging gaps, building resilience, and fulfilling Farm Trails' mission to instill an appreciation of agriculture as a vital part of our lifestyle. Carmen, great to have you here today to talk about Sonoma County Farm Trails and all the good work you're doing. It's, what is it? We're in July 12th, I think it is?
13th.
13th. Oh, my God. It's not Friday, though. That's good. So it is the 13th of July, and you have a big event coming up.
We do.
Next month, about a month from today.
Exactly a month from
yes,
today.
So why don't you just let's talk about that right now. We'll go back to it, but just to let people at the front end know what's happening.
Gladly. So our primary annual fundraiser since 1973 is the Gravenstein Apple Fair, which is a very sweet premium libation, farm-inspired cuisine. Lots of ag representation there in terms of demonstrations and presentations and farm animals, and also a pretty stellar music lineup. And that's August 13th and 14th in Sebastopol,
California,
Sonoma County. And the website is gravensteinapplefair.com.
gravensteinapplefair.com. They can also get to it just by going to farmtrails.org.
Yes, they can.
Yeah. And so go to the website and you can get tickets there. And what do they cost?
The advanced tickets are $18 for adults and $10 for kids, and it's a full day of fun for all ages.
Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of music. I looked at the lineup. It's
excellent
amazing.
Music, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of bands. There must be 20, 25? 24, wow. Yeah, so that'll be really great. Those who love music and good food, farm-to-table food, can have a great time there. We'll go back to that later and talk a little bit more about the history. But I want people to know who you are, Carmen. I think you have an interesting history, how you came to Sonoma County. We're going to talk about Farm Trails and what it is and how it's so kind of pioneering. But what's your story? What's your origin story?
My origin story? Well, I'm from the Carolinas, and in my late 20s, I moved out. I was living in Asheville, North Carolina.
Love that town.
Teaching school and yoga. And I moved to an intentional farming community. That is the oldest intentional community still existent in the country.
Wow.
And
It's set up really just around best practices for the environment. It doesn't have it was founded by Quakers, but it's not a religious or spiritual or indoctrinated community. But you do have to get community approval, for instance, to cut a tree over a particular diameter. You can't use Roundup. So it's basically people are in alignment about the way that they want to take care of the land. And there are a lot of artists there and crafters and professors and a lot of farmers. And so I lived right next door to the farm camp. And in the off season, so not the summer, the rest of the year, there was a wonderful community thing where the farm animals, like the milk goats and the milk cow, members of the community would just take shifts. And so I would go down and water the cow, feed the cow, milk the cow, which turned out to be, it was so hard the first time, but it ended up being one of my actually all-time favorite things to do in the world. Very meditative. And then I would get to take the milk home with me and learned how to make cheese and yogurt and ice cream and
Nice.
all sorts of things. And when I was there, I had a wonderful garden and I was surrounded by farmers and ate. It was the time in my life that I ate the most directly from the land and from my neighbors. I saw how hard the farmers worked. I realized that I'm a pretty good gardener, but not quite farmer material. And I also learned from the elders in that community how to process food and how to preserve food and we did a lot of fermentation. I was part of the organizing committee for the Southeastern Permaculture Gathering that took place there. So I just did kind of a deep dive into both permaculture and to small-scale farming, and had developed a tremendous appreciation for the hard work that goes into it, for the labor of love that it is, for the art and the science of it. And when I moved here in 2009, I had a deep yearning to know my farmers here and get connected to the agricultural community.
Like you had in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And why did you come?
My ex-husband got a job with Sonoma County as their sustainability coordinator. It was a job that he really wanted. And as much as I just adore the mountains of North Carolina, some people don't know this, it's the most biodiverse place on the continental U.S. in terms of flora, and that also means a lot of mold. And I was having some health challenges with just the mold overload.
Wow.
So I felt willing to move because I knew I'd visited Sonoma County a lot, and my vitality was much greater out here.
Well, that's good.
So we landed here, and the marriage didn't work out, but I quickly got connected to farm trails and started developing community through that.
Great. That's a very good story. I like that. It's, so formative when you describe living in that community, how it affects you, how it shapes the way you think about the world and what you become attracted to later.
Yeah. And what I realized there, like my parents were both great cooks, not gardeners, but I learned to can and to ferment food from my neighbors in North Carolina. And I think that those cultural arts really get lost within a generation if they're not maintained. So that was a huge lesson and passion for me. And that's part of what I've wanted to bring to the Apple Fair, actually, is having demonstrations on cheese making and fermenting vegetables, like low-tech, easy do-it-yourself methods at home to preserve food.
And a lot of people now want to learn that stuff. I think a lot of the young people that I meet are interested in DIY. And I think it's a sense of we have to become more resilient, and that's part of being resilient.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, let's jump into Farm Trails. Farm Trails is a community-based organization here in Sonoma County, and it's almost 50 years old. So tell us what Farm Trails is and what its mission is.
Sure. So Farm Trails' boiled down mission is to keep farms forever in Sonoma County. And to do that, to that end, we produce a mapping guide to local agriculture, which is how Farm Trails originally started back in 1973. A group of farmers and the ag commissioner got together and realized that there was a need for viability for the small-scale farmers to have more direct connection with the public. And of course, this is, before farmers markets were widely available before the internet.
Before farm-to-table restaurants.
Before farm-to-table, yeah. Actually, the distribution laws, my understanding is they were different at that time, and it was really hard to get into grocery stores and restaurants. But of course, we have this bountiful county, and with so many different types of producers, and so they plotted the farm stands on a map and distributed it to try to introduce the public to local food. It was kind of the origin, I think, of the Go Local movement, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Farm Trails was the first farm trails of its kind in the nation.
We were.
Very first, and that's how you got farmtrails.org.
Exactly.
Which is really wonderful.
I know, we're the original.
Yeah.
Although we're happy to see farm trails springing up everywhere.
Yeah, there are all over the country now. Mm-hmm. Carolinas must have a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And I know New York State does, and Oregon. And yeah, so that's fabulous. And today, how many farms are on the map?
We have about 170 something on the map. And what's changed over the years, back in 1973, all the farms that were on the map did have farm stands that they staffed, or they were, weigh and pay honor stations. And they all were open to the public regularly. And with the landscape changing, with markets, it hasn't made sense for a lot of the farms to stay open regularly and staff their farm stands. A lot of them go to farmers markets. Mm-hmm. A lot of them sell directly, of course. We're so pleased that they sell to local restaurants and groceries. And so many of our members are not always open to the public. And what Farm Trails has kind of done to adapt to that is we started producing in the 80s, when things started changing, seasonal tours. For instance, we do a spring tour called Blossoms, Bees, and Barnyard Babies at kind of the beginning of the season. Mm. And then in the fall, we have an end of harvest tour called Weekend Along the Farm Trails. And for these, we have a lot of members who aren't generally open to the public, who do come on and open up their barnyard doors and gates to let the public visit their farms and learn about their practices, what it takes to grow food, how to manage the soil, the water, how they take care of their animals, what methods they use. I think it's wonderful that obviously that people get to connect with farmers at farmers markets and get recipes and have that direct connection. And I think that a farm tour just kind of takes it to the next level to actually see the land and the crops and the animals. Some people are like, "Oh, I didn't realize potatoes were in the ground."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always
so
surprising.
it's an education, actually. Essentially, I think they're wonderful outings for families and
kids. It's great for kids.
To get to like put a little seed in your hand and feed a baby doll sheep, like at Deborah Walton's place years back. That was so precious to watch. But also, I think it's an education in the true cost of well-grown food. Mm-hmm. And I think it has, we hope, and I do believe this is true, that it has the farmers be more celebrated as well.
Mm-hmm. They're heroes.
They are heroes.
Yeah, I have incredible respect for them.
Yeah. Our spring tour a few years ago, which was the last big one we did pre-pandemic, we had 10,000 attendees.
Wow.
Over the course of the weekend, going across, they're self-guided tours, so you don't have to, it's not like a passport where you have to pay for a ticket and make different stops. They're free to the public. They're free to our farmers. It's definitely part of our mission to connect the two. And
how did the 10,000 people find out about it?
Just through advertising, social media, newsletters, flyers. Mm-hmm. So that's part of Farm Trail's mission, is to instill an appreciation of agriculture and to help small farmers be more viable. So we see this, we carry the expense of it to hopefully have the farmers have great sales that day and have the public make deeper connections with the source of their food.
Mm-hmm. And how far away do you draw people from? Is it Marin and Sonoma and Napa? Where are they coming from?
They come from the greater Bay Area, and our exit surveys indicate that it's about half and half. So a lot of people from Sonoma County take the opportunity to get out and meet their farmers, and I think especially at the farms that aren't regularly open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
And our farmers go out of their ways to give tours and demonstrations and, have food and obviously all of their products for sale, picnic areas.
The farmtrails.org website I like it. I remember actually when you moved from paper to the web. That was a big thing. I can't remember how long ago that was now, but I was here in the county when that happened. Because I always used to get every year when I worked for Select Sonoma County, which was a different organization that promoted the brand of Sonoma County in the retail stores. One of the first things I did every year was to get the new Farm Trails map because I knew where the farms were. Yeah, and there's the beautiful.
We still make it.
Yep. Map and guide. And I see those being distributed at different places around the county. But then you went to the web. Was that before you came or before you started working there?
We had a website when I started working there, but it was kind of skeletal. And so we've really custom built a whole new website during my tenure, 2 of them actually, because we lost one platform. But they're custom built. And as you know, they're very dynamic and searchable. So you can plug in these filters of what you want to see and it drops pins on the map. So our mapping guide is wonderful. And I think a lot of people still like the tangible paper. And people have told me over the years so many times that they actually use our maps, not just to see the farms, but to explore and learn about Sonoma County. But, there's limited information that you can put in a blurb. But on the website, each of our farmers has a dedicated page. And then we have a comprehensive listing of all their products and services and also their methods and practices. So like who's biodynamic or hormone free or, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. What I liked also is you have a section that says CSAs and restaurants and tours, tastings. So you can kind of whatever your mood is to do, you can search and find a way to contact places where you can do those things. I thought that was really smart. Yeah, good. I like that. There are 14 CSAs in the county that I counted on the website. That's very impressive. I'm glad to know that.
Right when the pandemic started, we immediately mobilized, and because we were at that point building our second new website, we were able to do it because we had our web people, we were in active communication with them, but we immediately created a shelter-in-place portal in our website. So listing all of the CSAs who were taking customers, what restaurants were delivering, where, how could you get local food, which was very high on the radar. I hope that will be one of the silver linings coming out, is that if we can say coming out, but moving forward, I do think people developed an acute appreciation for being able to source food locally. But it was the first time, to my knowledge, that all of our CSAs got full. And they had waiting lists.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good thing. So, the pandemic has shined a light on the need to secure food sources because the big supply chains broke down in so many areas and so many places. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, and you'd go into the store and you'd like, wow, the shelves are empty there. And people were freaking out, and it was in the news. And I do know that a lot of farmers gained from that. Are you seeing, is it sticking? Are people still, or is there an erosion of commitment? Have you heard stories? I
think it's sticking.
Good.
In terms of the CSAs, yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And, Feed Sonoma really mobilized as well.
Talk about Feed Sonoma so people know what that is.
Yeah. So this is a collective that they lost when the pandemic hit. Feed Sonoma purchases food from farmers and then distributed it at local, or not just local, Bay Area restaurants all the way down into the city. And they lost about 80% of their business overnight, but with all the restaurants closing. And so Feed Sonoma was on track actually to become a farmer-owned cooperative, which they've since done. And they started doing feed bins. So essentially it was a really large-scale CSA operation that did deliveries and really filled a need in the pandemic times for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really important. I think things like that happened all over the country in different ways. And as we think about the future and the need to make our communities more resilient, it's really good to have these structures, these community-based structures in place. So I want to just have people understand a little bit about how Farm Trails is funded. What do you do to get the resources you need to promote the farms?
Mm-hmm. It is almost entirely funded by the Gravenstein Apple Fair. That is our primary annual fundraiser. It funds all of our operations and initiatives. We are a membership-based organization, and we always have been. And the dues we haven't raised dues since I've been the executive director in 10 years. So it's $150 for renewing members, and new members who come on are $175. So that
Completely reasonable.
Completely reasonable, and we do trades. We don't ever turn anyone away for lack of funds, but that doesn't pay even for the printing of the mapping guide. So that's really kind of it's more like an investment in being connected to the organization, and
It's a sign of commitment.
a sign of commitment. Thank you. But the way that our tours are paid for, our marketing, our scholarships, all of our initiatives and operations are funded by the Gravenstein Apple Fair.
Wow. So you don't get any money from the tax, the bed tax, when people visit and pay for a hotel room?
We do, actually.
Okay, good.
So we get the TOT, the Transit
TOT,
Occupancy Tax. Actually, Farm Trails was founded or seeded with money from TOT back in 1973. Wow. And we still get some, now it's called the Community Investment Fund, some grants, and I think largely because of the fires and the need to respond to that and prioritize, the community investment funds have diminished in terms of, funding Farm Trails advertising initiatives. It's a reimbursement for advertising.
So it's not as fulsome as it used to be. You don't get what you need really from that.
No, like a 20th of, or a 10th maybe.
So the big event in August, was it founded before the actual map on Farm Trails? Was the Gravenstein Fair at the beginning, from the beginning?
It was started by the founders of Farm Trails. So Farm Trails started in April of 1973, and the first Apple Fair was August of 1973, and it was intended to be our fundraiser. So we feel fortunate that we do have this lovely signature community event that keeps the lights on for Farm Trails and keeps us doing our good work. And the founders of Farm Trails also created the Apple Fair a little bit as a revival for the old Sebastopol Apple Show. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of that, or downtown Sebastopol with like train sculptures built out of Gravenstein apples.
Yes, I have seen those.
The founders of Farm Trails wanted to celebrate the Gravenstein, which is so historic and beloved in our county, and bring back a community event where people could converge, where farmers could be represented. I mean, it really is an ag event. In addition to having fabulous arts and crafts and music, there's still a very strong ag presence, which I love, like the sheep shearing demos and the cow milking demos.
We hope you are enjoying the conversation. If you are, please rate our podcast and offer a review. Your voice will help us grow our listener base, which helps us sustain the funding to share these conversations with the people and organizations shaping a more just and regenerative future. A future in which the food and farm businesses are helping to solve the largest challenges of our time.
I think we should just talk for a second about Gravenstein apples, because Gravenstein apples, it's a European apple that was brought here, they say. I've heard many different origin stories. It's German, it's Russian, who knows? I don't know. Maybe you know.
There's debate.
There's debate, yeah. So, but it's a very interesting apple. I have a Gravenstein apple tree in my backyard. It's just finishing. It's an early grav. It's a red grav. So it's usually July. And early July usually, and it's just about finished. But gravs, this area was known for Gravenstein apples, which are very tart, have a nice blend of tart and sweet. Mm-hmm. But I would say more on the tartar side. I like that. If you let them ripen on the tree, they'll get more and more sugary. I like them when they're still got a lot of green on them, because I like that tart thing going on.
Yeah.
And they were really great for desserts. I like to roast them. Mm-hmm. I bore out the center, put in butter and cinnamon, and then put them either after I'm done barbecuing or in the oven, and just let them until they kind of explode. Oh my God, they're delicious.
So good.
Yeah. But we had many places here that canned them or made applesauce, and they don't last that long in the fresh market.
They don't, and they don't travel well. So I think with the advent of like the Red Delicious and these apples that, were more exportable, the Gravenstein popularity declined a little bit. And they're kind of, they're not necessarily the most, I think they're beautiful, actually, the striations, mm-hmm. but, they sometimes could be in the category of the ugly produce mm-hmm. contest.
But I like the striation. I like the diversity. I know the slow food movement, the Russian River chapter of Slow Food started the Gravenstein project to protect the Gravenstein, and I know that it's been fairly successful. It's helped rebuild a lot of markets.
It has. They've done a great job, and they come to the Apple Fair with their community apple press, right. And so folks can actually, press the apples and sample the juice directly. And you probably know that Luther, or maybe you don't know this, but Luther Burbank, the famed horticulturist, of course,
who lived here in Sonoma County,
said that if only one apple could be grown, it would be the Gravenstein.
Mm-hmm. And he also said that Sonoma County is the chosen place of all the earth as far as nature is concerned.
But it is true. They're so... I love Gravenstein juice. I love hard cider, which is having a revival and helping to keep the Gravs in production. And that's another thing I'll say about the Apple Fair that's pretty special is we have a craft cider tent with over 17 local craft cider producers, which is pretty phenomenal.
I love cider. I love really, it's gotten so sophisticated, so good, so
complex and dry.
And all the diversity of the flavors now. Fabulous.
Yeah. And then, of course, for saucing and, to my mind, for an apple pie, the Gravenstein is definitely the best.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm glad that it's called the Gravenstein Apple Fair because it keeps that idea of the Grav alive, and we need to do that.
Yes, we do.
Because we need to diversify the agriculture in the county. I mean, wine is great, but we need a diversity. And I know the Duttons and others have grown Gravensteins, who are big grape growers. They also grow Gravs.
They do. They have probably the largest acreage in organic Gravensteins.
Yeah.
And they bring them to the fair in bulk so people can take them home and try recipes.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And I saw that they are a sponsor of the fair.
They are a sponsor. So I should say that, the Apple Fair itself, through attendance and through libation sales, we generate a lot of income from that, and we couldn't do it without community sponsors. And we have a lot of them.
Yeah, you do. I was very impressed.
Check out this flyer. Look at all those sponsors on there.
Look at all that. Dutton Ranch. Oh, sir, Rich and Sarah Lee Cundy, who are no longer with us, they still sponsor through an endowment fund.
They do.
That's fabulous. Ag Credit, which is the lender here. Harmony Farm Supply, where those who want to buy organic starts and all kinds of stuff can shop there. Oliver's Market, where I shop all the time. Exchange Bank, which is a long time. Now, I was curious, what is the Northern California Public Media? What is that?
That's our public media station that has both radio and television down in...
That used to be KRCB, yeah. KRCB, yeah. Okay, so that's right. Okay,
they've come on as a big media sponsor this year and are sponsoring one of the big stages.
Great.
And then you'll also see on there North Coast Organics, which was formerly called Manzana, which is the last apple cannery in Sonoma County.
And they've renamed.
In Brayton.
Yeah, great. And I do see the Golden State Cider, which just the Jackson family just bought to keep kind of expand it and grow it. So that's fantastic. Yeah, a really nice list of I saw you have also a lot of great craft breweries. Beer is going to be there.
All of it, yeah. There's Hen House is our major beer sponsor, and Sonic has come on, and Russian River. I mean, all the wonderful local Sonoma County breweries will be represented there too.
Which I have to say, I mean, those three breweries are nationally recognized, globally recognized.
Yeah.
Now, actually, they're all incredible breweries. It's not just wine that this place is famous for now.
That's true. And the wine at the fair is off the hook. I mean, just...
Yeah.
It's a bargain. The price of a glass of wine at the Apple Fair, you certainly couldn't get it in a restaurant. So we're grateful for all of the libations are donated, actually. So I want to say thank you to all of those producers because that's a huge part of the fundraising of the event.
Yeah, of course.
Their generosity.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So how many people come to this thing?
In pre-pandemic years, and we're hoping for, if we're planning a full-scale Apple Fair, we're going for it. And the maximum attendance over the course of the 2 days is 15,000.
Mm-hmm. So it's not overcrowded.
It's not overcrowded. It's not tiny. It's in a beautiful setting, Regal Ranch Regional Park.
Gorgeous
place. Oak trees there.
Yeah.
And we feel so lucky just so blessed to be able to hold an event there where we kind of have a sweetheart deal with them because the founders of Farm Trails helped to create that park.
Wow.
And to clear it and
which is just west of Sebastopol, downtown Sebastopol.
So we are the only event that takes place there, and it's a precious setting.
Yeah,
it kind of makes the Apple Fair actually. I mean, everything just clicks in there, and it's so lovely. But the Oak Grove is truly amazing.
Well, it feels rural. I mean, you feel really like you're in the countryside, and you are. So it's a nice thing. And again, it's August 13th and 14th, 1 month from today.
Yeah.
People can go to
either farmtrails.org or gravensteinapple.fair.com.
To get the tickets, which are very reasonable. I mean,
They
say
are
that again.
for
How much are they?
18 for adults and 10 for kids. 5 and under are free. And on site, the ticket price goes up a little bit to $25 for adults and $15 for kids. So we're encouraging people to get them either online early or at all of the Copperfields locations, at all of the...
Which is a bookstore here.
Yeah, all of the Oliver's markets in our area, Sports Basement, and Harmony Farm Supply and Nursery also have advanced discounted ticket sales.
Great. Talk a little bit about, I saw Stemple Creek is a member. Will there be local meats served there?
There will be. Stemple Creek will be in our artisan tasting alley.
Which
sampling.
is a great grass-fed beef producer from this county.
Oh my gosh.
I buy it all the time. It's
I do
fantastic.
too. Best steak I've ever had. And also I love their beef jerky, and that's what they'll be sampling. We have Black Piglet will be there with their famous BLT sandwiches.
Dusky and John.
Yeah, they're
2 great chefs cooking.
and Kendra, the farmer's wife, with her
Oh, yeah, good.
amazing grilled cheeses. So
Is there poultry?
veggie heavy.
Oh, okay.
There will be poultry. Do you know Jam's Joy out of Sebastopol?
No.
She's going to do a fried chicken sandwich.
Oh, great.
And Belfair is also going to do a fried chicken sandwich. Fork Roadhouse
Oh, great.
is going to do fish tacos. So there's
Plenty of good food.
plenty of good food.
And then vegetarian, you're about to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say we also have plenty of food for vegetarians and vegans, and we give preference and priority heavily to local chefs who source locally as well. So we, on our applications, we ask where they source their food, and say the meat is not certified organic, is it hormone free? So we have really top-notch food as well.
Yeah, that's what I remember actually last time I was there. It was fantastic food.
Yeah, and even the Farm Trails fritters, which is our little operation, are made with organic Gravenstein apples from Dutton Ranch and organic milk and eggs from Clover,
Nice.
organic flour. So
Great. That's wonderful.
and you get all the apple treats. And then Shauna and Brandon, do you know Rocker Oyster Fellers out in Valley Ford?
Yeah, beautiful.
They do out of this world caramel apples, like the real cajeta.
Like the old ones, like they used to do.
Yeah.
And Estero Cafe will be there?
They're not coming this
Americana?
year.
No,
they
they're not.
have before. They've brought their corn dogs before, but not
Not this
they're not your regular old fare corn dogs.
No. So I'm glad that people got a good feel for what's going to be happening that weekend, and I really encourage people to see one of the great agricultural events that I've ever been to, and I'm really glad that it's come back. So you've been out of service because of pandemic for 2 years or 3?
We took 2 full years off, and the first year we did what we called the Grav and Go. So we did a drive-through at the community center where everybody was masked. We had really explicit directions about what to do. They placed orders ahead of time for bulk Gravensteins and some, like applesauce, some Gravenstein products, just because we still wanted to support the apple industry, of course, and let people get their Gravs. So we did a drive-through in 2020. And then last year, we did a very small-scale benefit concert, limited attendance. All of the straw bale seating arrangements were a minimum of 6 feet apart. We were all masked. And so it was just a little nod as a placeholder to the Apple Fair, and also to help us bridge the gap financially. One day, just a few bands, a couple of food vendors. But this year we're coming back full steam.
Yeah, I can see it in the promo materials.
Yeah.
It's really great. Well, let's change the subject a little bit now and talk about. I mean, you have first of all, your background living in a community in North Carolina. You're 10 years running this organization, being close to many small family farms in the county, seeing the impact of pandemic and drought and fires. Mm-hmm. We are living in a hot zone of many crises that are impacting our food system. So I'm curious about your, first of all, sense of the health of the small farm industry here compared to other years. How are you feeling about that?
Besides the drought and the fires, there's, of course, the cost of living in Sonoma County, which continues to be a challenge for small-scale farmers. We've seen an exodus. We've lost a lot of small farms in recent years because of the cost of living here and doing business here. On the other hand, we have new farmers joining Farm Trails every month or so, like new farms that are popping up. And so I'm hopeful, and I'm amazed always by the creativity and the resilience. And, for instance, one trend that I've seen in recent years, when I started at Farm Trails, we didn't have any dedicated flower farmers. And now there are amazing flower farmers who are, doing farm stands, CSA flower farms, really trying to push the industry for events to source locally. I'm loving the new farms that I see. I'm grateful for them. And I would say we're holding steady, and
which is saying a lot,
Yeah.
given the crises we're facing and we've been through. I mean, the fires in 2017, 2019, 2020. It's incredible, the fire situation that we've been going through.
Yeah, and I'm going to knock on wood that
that we don't have it
that
this
we're
summer.
breathing fresh air today.
Right. Yes, we are. Even though there are fires burning near Yosemite and other
There
places.
are, yeah. I kind of shudder to use this word. It's so overused, but we have seen so much pivoting in relationship to the drought as well, like farmers who are really getting serious about, the farmers have always had that on their mind in California, the drought-tolerant plants that require less water, dry farming. Mm-hmm. But we're seeing that more and more, even CSAs trending toward like more strawberry production.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that you feel like we're holding our own, because I have heard about a lot of farms who don't have senior water rights and got their water pulled last year, and just didn't have water, so they couldn't farm.
Yes,
that's happening.
That is happening, and so I think for sure the need for organizations like ours and many other organizations in the county. I mean, we have so many partners that we collaborate with, and the Sonoma County Food System Alliance, a lot of creative thinkers who are trying to not only work on the food system issues, but also keep our farmers visible.
Mm-hmm. Well, you and I were in a series of meetings pre-pandemic, I guess, and maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, I can't remember exactly, but with some of the members of the Board of Supervisors to talk about potential local policies to support agriculture that never really went anywhere because of the fires and because of the pandemic. Do you feel like that might be worth re-engaging those conversations?
I do. I remember that it was going to be like the year of the farmer, and then the fires hit, and things necessarily got so, backburnered. So
sidetracked. Yeah. It's been tough.
One crisis after the next, and then the flood too.
Yeah, that's right. The flood was in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
We had the big flood out in the West County. Yeah, I think that it's good news. I mean, what struck me when you said that there are new farmers coming in all the time, farmers going out and farmers coming in, I think that the desire to be close to the land, to be a food producer, is large now. And there are a lot of young people who are moving that direction, studying agriculture, studying food systems, studying sustainability, organic agriculture. I mean, regenerative agriculture, biodynamics. It's on the cutting edge for a lot of young people. So hopefully that flow will continue. And always in farming, you find those who have what it takes to stick it out, because it's a hard life. It takes a lot of work. You have
long hours.
Long hours. And you have to be a person who likes physical labor.
Yeah.
I remember when I started here a long time ago, I came in 1990. And I remember in the 90s, there were a lot of young people that I was going out to their farms and doing stuff. They're not farming anymore because they got older, they had kids, they needed more money. It can be hard, but there are some who stayed with it and have built good businesses. And that's really exciting.
Yeah. And I think I'm forgetting the names of the films, but there have been several that have come out recently talking about regenerative agriculture. And of course, we have superstars here in our county, and how that can be part of the climate solution, climate crisis solution. So that to me is a hopeful thought too, that there's more awareness around that.
Yes.
And I'm not just talking about what Paul and Elizabeth do, which is amazing out at Singing Frogs, like with all of the soil vitality that they're building and the water retention, but also with the grazing
Yes.
animals like Stemple Creek
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Freestone Ranch.
Yeah. No, there are some really exciting things happening here. We do live in a good place for that. And that's why, whether it was Farm Trails or Select Sonoma County, which was the regional marketing program, the branding in the stores, those were both the first programs in the country to do that. And Luther Burbank came here, and he in some ways, it's interesting about Luther Burbank. I mean, he was an incredible plant breeder. So many Shasta daisies growing in my backyard right now. I mean, I love them. He created those. The Santa Rosa plum.
Oh, yeah.
Burbank russet potato. I mean, there's so many things that he did. At the same time, he was one of the guys that really launched industrial agriculture because he built the first big nursery that it was supplying the state with all these starts that were going all over the place. I don't think he would think that the industrial agriculture we have today is necessarily what his vision was.
What he envisioned, yeah.
Right. But it is interesting how this place is a font of innovation around ag. So when you think about the future, 10 years from now, you gave us what you feel like is going on right now in terms of holding our own, despite crises. Where would you like to see Farm Trails in 10 years? And then we'll talk about the county.
Okay. I would love to see Farm Trails make it to its 60th anniversary, for sure, with continuing to offer tours to the public, because even though we live in an increasingly litigious society, which is a reality for farmers having people on working farms, you've got to staff up, you've got to really clear your property. It's a little bit more of a risk. But I feel so grateful for the farmers who are willing to open up to give that education directly to the public and that experience. So in the public, the demand for getting out on farms has grown in the time that I've been with Farm Trails. It's amazing. So I hope that more of that continues. I hope that our scholarships continue to fund ag youth, ag college students, young farmers. I hope that the diversity of agriculture and of Farm Trails continues to not only hold steady, but to grow in Sonoma County. I hope that the Gravensteins stay in full production, and that we, keep the cannery and all of these value-added businesses. And, in just the time that I've been here, I've seen the restaurants have greatly increased their local sourcing.
True.
And so I hope that trend really increases.
The farm-to-table trend.
The farm-to-table trend. And that's one thing about Farm Trails. We're not like a clearinghouse for just any old... I don't want to diminish anybody, but we vet our restaurant members, and if someone applies and they can't demonstrate that they're sourcing locally, we say this is not a good fit. Like, we really are wanting to showcase the restaurateurs and the chefs who are invested in our community agriculture as well.
There is a nice list on the site and in the map of the restaurants, which is really good. So when people come here to spend a weekend in the wine country or a week in the wine country, they can access a lot of good farm-to-table restaurants through your materials.
Yeah, it's kind of a quick list for people. Like, these are the spots to hit if that's what you want to find in Sonoma County.
Yeah. So can people make a donation to Farm Trails?
They can. They can do that through our website, farmtrails.org. And the donations through our website actually go to our sister nonprofit that we started recently, which is the Farm Trails Foundation. So Farm Trails was started as a 50c6 nonprofit.
Which is a promotional organization.
And we do that. So we can't make the case that we don't, for sure. So we did start a C3 charitable organization, and the funds that come into the Farm Trails Foundation, which is, again, what is linked to on our website, those go to support our scholarships.
So talk about those.
So we have long-time scholarships that we've been expanding over the years through the junior college here. So those are for ag students. We have 3 different scholarships, one of them being to help compensate the interns up at Schoen Farm, which is our amazing
junior college farm. Great farm. They grow all kinds of vegetables and wine grapes, a bunch of stuff.
And
They raise animals.
Yeah. We also have a long-time scholarship through the Farm Bureau, because, they give out a lot of scholarships to ag students who are in college. And then we also support different FFA chapters and 4-H clubs. That's something, speaking of, that I would like to see
More of?
I would like to see them get a boost of robustness because I think they really suffered in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I've met so many people. I didn't grow up with 4-H or FFA, but so many
Future Farmers of America, FFA.
But so many of my colleagues here were FFA kids or 4-H kids who learned how to raise animals. And that's another thing I love that Slow Food Russian River also participates in is the kids who grow the turkeys and then harvest them for Thanksgiving. So I'd love to see more of that. And then
That's where I get my turkey every year.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
And then the other scholarships that we funded are for like the Small Farm Conference to send farmers to those, to send farmers to Eco Farm. So that would be more along the lines of trying to support young and aspiring farmers who could use a little economic assistance.
Great. That's fantastic. So hopefully people will make a donation to support that really important work for the next generation of farmers.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, that's where you'd like to see the organization. I mean, I guess it fits nicely with what you hope happens in Sonoma County generally.
It does. I hope that we maintain the diversity of agriculture here that really is so unique to Sonoma County. And I love wine, but I definitely don't want to see any more orchards going into vineyards.
Right.
I would love to see more cheese makers pop up here. For a while there, our Valley Ford Trail was just incredible. There were so many really small-scale cheesemakers, and some of those, without it's hard to
Make it
with those margins. And so maybe a couple of more facilities. I'm loving what the ranchers have been working on with mobile slaughter so that animals don't have to travel so far and have the stress.
Yeah, we've done programs on Bar C. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So I'd love to see, I think, more
infrastructure
collaborative, infrastructure community projects that make it more accessible to grow and process food and where people come together. I mean, that's certainly one thing I learned living in an intentional community is the magic that can happen when you're sharing resources.
Yeah, that's a great way to end right there. The idea, the image of us, more and more people sharing resources to make sure their communities are resilient and healthy and have a really great food supply. So
one more thing I might add is this succession planning, to not lose the institutional knowledge of our elders.
Yes, very important. Like you said at the beginning, actually, about learning how to preserve food and do those things. I mean, that has to be passed on, that knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, Carmen, very, very nice talking to you.
You too, Michael.
Have a great event.
Thank you.
And I know it'll be good, and good luck with all your important work.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. Lovely to see you, as always.
Thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsors, the Ladybug Foundation, Dan and Quincy Imhoff, Beth and Mark Wyatt, Cindy Daniel, and Doug Lipton. Roots of Change is a program of the Public Health Institute.